Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. Alright, so we are tuning into episode 2 of our Exodus saga. If you thought episode 1 was wild with baby Moses in a blanket, a burning bush phone call from God, and Pharaoh's brick making bonanza, hold on to your staffs. Episode 2 is about to crank things up to 11. So last time we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger. Moses had confronted Pharaoh with God's message, let my people go. And Pharaoh basically said, nope, and also make more bricks with no straw. So Moses was super discouraged. The Israelites were pretty mad at him and things looked bleak. Well, that was episode 1. Consider it the setup. Today in episode 2, we dive into Exodus chapters 6 through 10, where the showdown really begins. So get ready for an epic cascade of plagues, drama, and yes, some humor and heart along the way. So grab your drink. I have my coconut water like always. Get comfy and let's jump right into the story. All right, chapter 6, family ties and divine pep talk. So scene opens on Moses, who is feeling lower than a snake or a snake's belly in a wagon rut. I mean, can you blame him? He did exactly what God asked, and Pharaoh responded by making life even harder for the Israelites. The people are upset. Moses is moping, and he's basically saying, Lord, why did you send me? This isn't working. I told you, I'm not the person. So at the start of chapter 6, God gives Moses a much needed pep talk. In a thunderous yet comforting tone, God says, and I'm paraphrasing here, by the way, now watch what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. He's going to not only let them go, he will practically push them out. So God reminds Moses of the covenant promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He reveals his name Yahweh, meaning I am the Lord, again, emphasizing that he is the same faithful God of their forefathers. It's like God is saying, I haven't forgotten the promises. I hear the Israelites groaning and I'm in on it. Moses is told to relay this message of hope to the Israelites. So Moses goes and tells the people, good news, God is going to rescue us. But the Israelites, crushed in spirit from all the harsh labor, want none of it. They're like, yeah, sure, Moses, we've heard that one before, and and they don't listen. Can't blame them entirely. It's hard to hope when you're exhausted and broken. God then gives Moses and Aaron marching orders. Go back to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. So Moses, however, is still anxious, as I would do. He basically stammers, but I'm not good at this. I have uncircumcised lips. I speak poorly. Even if even the Israelites won't listen to me, how will Pharaoh? So, yes, Moses is pulling the same old excuse we heard in episode 1. At this point in the text, we get a bit of a narrative timeout for a genealogy, a family tree rundown of the tribes of Israel, especially the lineage of Moses and Aaron. It's as if the story says, meanwhile, here's a quick Ancestry.com report on Moses. We learn Moses and Aaron comes from the tribe of Levi, with details on their family line. So here's a little fun fact. This establishes their credentials and family heritage, important for the original audience. Though Moses might have been thinking, is now really the time for a family history lesson? So, genealogy aside, the chapter wraps up by reiterating Moses and Aaron are the ones appointed to speak to Pharaoh on God's behalf. Moses is still over there, muttering, "I'm a lousy speaker. How will Pharaoh ever take me seriously?" But God's made it clear that he is in control and he's not taking no for an answer. The stage is set for the showdown in Egypt. Um, in this juncture, Moses is learning that when the going gets tough, God doubles down on his promises. My daughter's calling me. Um, it's striking that God doesn't rebuke Moses his doubts harshly. Instead, he reassures him. One Bible commentator notes that Moses was discouraged because he was too impressed by Pharaoh and not impressed enough by God. Like, ouch. That hits home. In life, we often magnify our pharaohs, obstacles and opposition, and minimize God's power. Chapter 6 gently nudges us to refocus, remember who's really in charge, even when the people's spirits were broken and Moses' confidence was shaky. God's plan was still steadily moving forward. It's an encouraging reminder that our limitation or past failures don't derail God's promises. When we're at our weakest, God often reminds us, "I am the Lord. I've got this." All right, fun fact corner. Here's a quirky detail. Moses and Aaron were senior citizens during this whole adventure. So chapter 7 will soon tell us that Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. So spoiler. So talk about an age-defying mission that family genealogy in chapter 6 isn't just filler. It shows these brothers were Levites by birth, destined for a special role. In ancient times, 80 might have been the new 40. And in my previous episodes, actually, I think this was in season 1 sometime around Noah's. I don't remember what episode that was, but I said 500 is like 40 years old. But it's different. After the flood, ages have been decreased. Like people could no longer live centuries. That was a part of their punishment. You can only live like just over 100. But since, it's different now, so 80 is a new 40 instead of 500 is a new 40. Anyways, so it's both inspiring and a little humorous to think that when most folks today would be long retired, Moses and Aaron were just getting started on their life's biggest assignment. So if you ever feel too old or not qualified, remember Moses at 80, staff in hand, marching off to face Pharaoh. Age is just a number when God's calling is involved. But we have to take things into consideration, especially now, in this day and age that we live in, depending on the kind of diet that you're doing and how active you are. 50 can be the new 30, or 50 can be the new 80, depending again on your lifestyle. So just take that into consideration as well. All right, and that is it for chapter 6. All right, chapter 7, staff, showdowns, and the waterworks begin. Moses and Aaron are back on Pharaoh's doorstep for round 2. God has given them a heads up about what to expect. Pharaoh's heart will be hardened, but this is all part of the plan to multiply God's miraculous signs in Egypt. Basically, God says, buckle up. This is going to be a long ride, but trust me, by the end, Egypt will know I am the Lord. Picture the royal audience hall. Pharaoh on his throne looking smug, guards and advisors flanking him, and in walk Moses age 80 and Aaron 83, probably with more confidence now, at least Aaron, since he's doing the talking. Pharaoh might be rolling his eyes like, here come the troublemaking grandparents again. I wonder how old the Pharaoh was. But, yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. Anyway, so Moses and Aaron announce another message from God, and to prove they mean business, they perform a miracle. Aaron throws down Moses' staff, the one that had turned into a snake at the burning bush, and whoosh, it transforms into a living snake right there on the palace floor. So Pharaoh sits up, intrigued but not impressed. He snaps his fingers for his own magicians and sorcerers. Bring in the professionals. These guys come in likely adorned in occult pendants, and lo and behold, they throw down their staffs, and those turn into snakes too. Pharaoh probably smirks, giving Moses, "You ain't special. Look." So for a moment, it's snakes galore, slithering mess on the marble floor, but then, plot twist, Aaron's staff snake goes full Jurassic Park and swallows up the magician's snake's whole. So, mic drop moment. The court gasps. You can imagine Moses suppressing a grin as God delivers a clear message. Top that, Pharaoh. So, despite this glaring sign of one-upmanship by the God of Israel, Pharaoh's pride remains as thick as a pyramid wall, which those are thick walls. I haven't not seen it in person, but I've seen it in videos and documentaries. But anyways, yeah. So he hardens his heart and he refuses to listen, just as God foretold. So round one, staff versus staff, I guess, ends with God's snake victorious, but Pharaoh is unconvinced still. Perhaps publicly brushing it off while privately a bit rattled. Who knows? But the real fun begins. The plagues. God tells Moses, Pharaoh's still stubborn. Time to initiate plague number 1. Moses is instructed to meet Pharaoh in the morning by the Nile River. Maybe as Pharaoh goes for his daily ritual bath or morning stroll. Picture the sunrise on the Nile, Pharaoh in his royal garb, and Moses intercepting him at the riverbank with Aaron and that trusty staff. Moses delivers the message. The Lord, God of the Hebrews, says, "Let my people go to worship me in the wilderness. Since you won't listen, here's how you'll know who is Lord." Aaron then takes the staff and touches the Nile water with it. And then, whoosh, the Nile turns to blood. Yes, you heard that right. Blood red water everywhere. The fish die, the river reeks to high heavens, and the Egyptians can't drink from it because it's blood. It's literal blood. This isn't just a little red dye number 40. The water is literally blood. Imagine the whole Nile River. That's all blood. It turned into literal blood. Like I cannot emphasize it anymore. I cannot say it anymore. It's just literal blood, gluggy and foul. So the Bible says and emphasizes it wasn't just red. Like I said, it's actual blood, and it says that on the Bible. So the once life-giving Nile has become a stinky nightmare scene. Imagine, usually when there's a good amount of blood, if you get a cut or whatever, you can smell what's that smell? Iron or some, no, what's the word? I'm blanking, but imagine that amount of blood. It would have reeked like crazy. I cannot. Anyway, so Pharaoh and his entourage watch this unfold, and it's a direct strike at Egypt's heart. The Nile was sacred, their source of life. You think this would prompt an immediate, Moses, on a second thought, go right ahead with your people, But Pharaoh's not budging yet. In fact, he signals his magicians again. Can you guys do something? So these magicians somehow manage, by trick of dark arts, to turn some water into blood as well. But I bet that was not an actual blood. It was probably just something red, like paint or something, because there's no way. Or maybe they somehow managed to get real blood from an animal or something. But anyways, they did not turn water into blood. To be fair, where they got clean water to do this is actually a mystery. So I was just guessing what I was telling you. So it doesn't actually say how they did it. It could have been one of my guesses, probably. So regardless, they replicate the blood trick on a smaller scale, way smaller. It was like probably a bowl of water or something. I don't know. It's almost darkly comical. Egypt's drowning in blood, and these guys are like, "Hey, look, we made more blood." If that helps anyone, thanks, fellas. Like, anyways, so Pharaoh, seeing that his guy can copy it, hardens his heart again. Like, oh, meh. He says, I imagine, and stomps back to his palace, refusing to let the Israelites go. The Egyptians, meanwhile, are left digging wells along the Nile for drinkable water, gagging at the smell of fish rot. Look, the first plague lasts a full 7 days, an entire week of bloody misery, but Pharaoh's resolve still hard as ever. So what a showdown. By the end of chapter 7, it's clear that this is more than just a human dispute. It's a clash of powers, a contest between God and the pride of Pharaoh. One striking image was Aaron's snake staff swallowing the magician's snake, a powerful visual symbol. If you've seen the movie, kind of close to that, I can only imagine how that must have looked like, for real, and not in an animated movie. Anyways, hang on, let me just take a drink. So, as one commentary insightful puts it, no matter what the Egyptians tried, God's plan would swallow up Pharaoh's plans. Pharaoh might posture as a god king, but the real God is flexing his muscles. Nobody can beat God. So, and they're only human. What can you do? Like, they're funny and honestly not smart. But still, Pharaoh's heart is unmoved. It makes me reflect on the nature of stubbornness. How we humans can see sign after sign and yet refuse to change our stance. Pharaoh had just witnessed the lifeblood of Egypt, the Nile turned to actual blood, and his response was to shrug it off. So it's a cautionary tale. Pride and hardness can blind us to even the most obvious truth, and that is unfortunately happening right now in the U.S., where a lot of MAGA people are either they don't see it or they choose to ignore the obvious facts that are happening, real life events happening in front of them. But you know what? I digress. So we also see that initial successes can embolden a person's false confidence. Like Pharaoh clung to the notion that he could match God, trick for trick, which is almost laughable. Well, it is very laughable, like very not smart. But anyways, when people authority or people of power think they are just God and can do whatever, they're hilariously stupid. There you go. I said the word. So this chapter invites us to examine our own hearts. We do brush off warnings or signs in our lives due to pride or other things. Remember, recognizing a higher power at work and choosing humility is a lot wiser than learning the hard way as Pharaoh is about to. Um, Fun fact corner. Did I do fun fact corner on chapter 6? I don't remember if I did. Anyway, so plague number 1 versus God of the Nile. The Nile turning to blood wasn't random. It was a theological statement. Ancient Egyptians worshipped several river deities, notably Happy, or Happy is an Hapi, and Osiris, gods associated with the Nile's life-giving waters. So by striking the Nile, God was symbolically clobbering those gods. Imagine the shock. The sacred river, personified by Happy, suddenly becomes a flowing stream of blood. It's like saying, "Where is Happy now?" So in Egyptian belief, the Nile was also linked to Osiris. Legend said that the Nile was his bloodstream, grim foreshadowing. So this plague was seen as a direct challenge to Egypt's spiritual comfort zone. A fun twist, Egyptian magicians making some bloody water only underscore their god's impotence. They added to the problem that couldn't fix it. So, Plague 1 delivered a bold message. The God of Israel has authority over the mighty Nile, and by extension over Egypt's deities. Not so fun fact for Pharaoh, his gods were literally bleeding out, and it's only the beginning. There's also another, fun something. I don't know if it's a fact, but I thought it was interesting. It was somebody from TikTok who said that the plagues were actually meant to cast away the actual, the gods that they worship. Each of those plagues had a counter god or demon, an actual demon that God was trying to cast away using those plagues. I don't know if I explained that properly, but when I watched the video, I was like, that's interesting. It makes sense. But anyway, it was pretty much saying that those demons or whatever that God was trying to cast away using each of those plagues, he was trying to cast them away because those demons are the ones who are controlling these people, the Egyptians. I don't know. But anyways, either way, we want to cast them away, whether they're real or not. And that is it for chapter 7. All right, chapter 8. Frogs, gnats, and flies. Oh my, yucky. So if you're an Egyptian hoping the blood water fiasco was one off, think again. Chapter 8 launches a parade of plagues that take you to a whole new level. So plague number 2, frogs. Yeah, frogs. You might think they can't hurt anything unless they're the poisonous ones, but a lot of them, zillions of them. So God tells Moses, go tell Pharaoh, let my people go worship or the land is gonna hop. Pharaoh again says no, so Moses signals Aaron to do his thing. Aaron stretches out his hand with the staff over the river and ponds, and suddenly Egypt is frog central. We're talking an amphibian avalanche. Slimy green frogs erupt from the Nile and literally go everywhere. Into houses, bedrooms, beds, office, mixing bowls. Like, surprise, it's frog dough. The palace infested. Pharaoh's royal bed occupied by croaking buddies. No Egyptian is spared. Frogs on heads, frogs in soup, frogs underfoot with every squelchy step. It's a scene straight out of a cartoon, if it weren't so gross. Frogs jumping and plopping. Egyptians freaking out. And I'm freaking out just telling you this story because I can imagine it. Ugh. And I don't get squirmy when it comes to frogs, but imagine zillions. I cannot imagine it. I don't want to. So Pharaoh's headed. He summons Moses and Aaron post haste. Imagine swatting frogs off his throne, trying to maintain composure as he says, "Fine, fine. Pray to your God to take these darn frogs away, and I will let your people go sacrifice to him." So, a crack in the armor. So Moses, perhaps hiding a smile, a grin, I don't know, asks Pharaoh, "Sure, and to prove God's power, you pick the time. When should the frogs leave?" Pharaoh, possibly thinking he's clever, or maybe just desperately wanting one more night to convince himself he's in control, says, "Tomorrow." Curiously, why not right now, Pharaoh? Maybe he's still trying to assert some authority by setting the schedule. Anyway, Moses agrees. "Tomorrow it is. There's no one like the Lord, all caps, our God." Moses prays to the Lord, and sure enough, the next day all the frogs die off. But they don't just vanish. Oh no, that would be too easy. The Egyptians have to gather heaps upon heaps of dead frogs. The whole land reeks of frog corpses. Why did they die? They could have just vanished. But it's a gross cleanup duty. But at least no more hopping in your breakfast cereal. And Pharaoh, once the frogs are gone and the smell fades a bit, he has a change of heart. He renegades. Did I use the right word? Anyways, he takes back his promise. Like, gotcha. No, you can't go. He basically says hardening his heart again now that relief has come. So, classic Pharaoh, crisis over, word forgotten. So, the score is God 2, Pharaoh 0. But Pharaoh's not letting go. So, plague number 3, gnats or lice. So without warning this time, God tells Moses to have Aaron strike the dust of the earth with his staff. The dust all across Egypt magically turns into swarms of gnats. So some translate it as lice, but either way, they're tiny biting insects. Gross. Think of every speck of dust suddenly zipping to life as biting bugs. And imagine that was in the desert. That's a lot of dust. So it's an itchy, scratchy nightmare. People and animals alike are crawling with these nasty gnats. Ever have one mosquito that drives you crazy at night? Egypt had clouds of them. Everyone is miserable and probably looking like they're doing a frantic dance as they slap at the air. Pharaoh calls in a magician again. "Help! Do that thing you do and make this stop, or at least show you can copy it." But guess what? The magicians try and fail to produce gnats with their secret arts. They're flabbergasted. Covered in itchy bites, these learned men turn to Pharaoh and admit in defeat. This is the finger of God. That had to be a humbling moment. Even Pharaoh's top illusionists are saying, "Dude, this is divine. We are out of our league." You think Pharaoh would say, "Wait, did you just say this is God at work? Maybe I should pay attention." But no, Pharaoh's heart stays stubborn. He basically growls, "Whatever, I don't believe it. No deal." And refuses to listen. Pride is one heck of a drug. Anyway, so plague number 4, flies. Now the Lord sends Moses back to Pharaoh with another warning. "Let my people go, or I will send swarms of flies on you, your officials, and your people. The house of the Egyptians will be full of flies, and even the ground will be covered." But here's a new twist. God says he will spare the region of Goshen, where the Israelites live, so that only the Egyptians get the flies. This way, Pharaoh will know this is no random freak event. It's targeted, divine action. Sure enough, the next day, wham! Thick swarm of flies descend on Egypt. Suddenly, the air is black with buzzing insects. Flies in your eyes, flies in your food, flies up your nose. Yucky. The text says the land was ruined because of the flies. I bet Egyptians were diving under blankets or jumping into the remaining water to escape the biting, germy horrors. Now Pharaoh is really fed up. He summons Moses and Aaron again, likely shooing flies from his face with every other word, and tries to negotiate. Oh, like saying, okay, go sacrifice to your God, but do it here in the land. He's basically saying, you can be religious, just don't leave Egypt. Moses, however, replies, no can do. Our worship would offend Egyptians if we do it here. They might stone us. We have to take a 3-day journey out into the wilderness as God commands. Pharaoh, getting desperate and probably spitting out a fly that flew into his mouth, counters. All right, fine, you can go, but not too far, and please pray for me to get rid of these flies. The audacity! I cannot even. This guy. So anyway, Moses agrees to pray the flies away with a stern warning. We'll pray and the flies will leave tomorrow, but Pharaoh, don't you dare lie to us again about letting us go. Pharaoh nods, anything to be rid of the flies. Moses exits and prays. The Lord responds, and boom, the flies vanish. Not one fly remained. Suddenly, the Flymageddon is gone in a day. You can imagine Egyptians crying tears of relief, maybe even spontaneous applause for Moses as a hero. I've been talking too fast. I just realized. Or am I? I don't know. Maybe this is normal. No. But, roll credits on that feel-good moment because Pharaoh, as the pressure is off, he hardens his heart yet again. Ugh. So he's like, change my mind, suckers. He essentially says, regarding the Israelites' freedom. Yeah. So, this chapter 8 ends with Pharaoh once more breaking his word. But you know what? That was to be expected with the kind of person that he is. So 4 plagues down, 6 to go, and Pharaoh still thinks he can win this waiting game. When people are just too stupid. Anyways. So that was a roller coaster. One pattern really jumps out in chapter 8 was the Pharaoh's flip-flopping. When the frogs, flies, and other nasties are on him, Pharaoh is quick to say, all right, I give in. But the moment there's respite, he takes it back. This is so human, unfortunately. It's easy to promise change when we're under pressure or in pain. It's just as easy to slide back into old ways once the crisis passes. Pharaoh's behavior is like a mirror to our tendency to make hollow promises, like I'll do better if things improve, and then forgetting that resolve when they do. Also striking is the admission by Pharaoh's own magicians. This is the finger of God. Yet Pharaoh didn't heed even the testimony of his expert. Very striking. Striking indeed. He was literally getting advice from the yes men turned truth tellers, and still he plugged his ears. The lesson here: stubborn pride can make us tune out even common sense and divine signs. Sometimes the people around us see the truth of our situation before we do, like those magicians recognizing God's work. Are we listening? Who knows? By the end of the chapter, Pharaoh's heart is a cautionary tale. Don't be that guy who says tomorrow to God but never follows through. Consistency and humility, those are the key takeaways. Let's hope we do better than Pharaoh when life's frogs and flies come our way. Alright, fun fact corner. Froggy fallout and an Egyptian goddess. Did you know the Egyptian actually worship a frog-headed goddess named Heget or Heket? She was associated with fertility and life, often depicted as a frog or a woman with a frog head. So when frogs swarmed Egypt in plague number 2, it wasn't just gross, it was theological satire. Egyptians saw frogs and sacred symbols of life, and suddenly they had an overdose of divine frog wreaking havoc. According to later traditions, this was the direct smackdown of Hecate's power. Pharaoh's magicians even managed to summon more frogs, but notably they couldn't make them go away. Only Moses' prayer to the Lord stopped the plague. So in essence, God was saying, "Oh, you like frogs? Here, have all the frogs and see how your frog goddess handles it." Spoiler, she didn't, because duh. So the overabundance of frogs turned a symbol of fertility into a symbol of chaos and judgment. It's a quirky historical footnote that shows the plagues weren't random. They struck at the heart of Egyptian beliefs or their gods that they worship. One can almost imagine an Egyptian stand-up comedian of the day quipping, "We wanted Hecate's blessing. Turns out she really frogged us over." And that is it for chapter 8. Alright, chapter 9, Livestock Lessons in Hailstorm from Heaven. So onward to chapter 9, where the hits keep coming. Pharaoh's still digging his heels. So God continues the divine assault. Because why not? Escalating the severity. By now, Egypt must be in disarray. Water polluted. Dead frogs and flies probably still being cleaned up. People itching from gnats. But wait, there is more. Plague number 5. Pestilence on livestock. Moses marches back into Pharaoh's court, maybe holding a shovel or a broom this time after helping clean the frog guts. And delivers yet another ultimatum from God. "Let my people go to worship me. If you refuse, the Lord will strike all your livestock in the field. Horses, donkey, camels, cattle, sheep, goats, with a deadly plague. But he will protect the animals of Israel. Not one of theirs will die." But Moses, Moses probably adds, "Mark your calendar, Pharaoh, because tomorrow this will happen." Pharaoh, stubborn as ever, likely sneers. We'll see about that. I sure hate this Pharaoh. But sure enough, the next day dawns and bam, Egypt's livestock in the fields are struck by sudden deadly disease. Cows moo their last. Horses drop. Sheep keel over. It's a mass die-off of farm animals. Imagine Egyptian farmers running out to their pastures to find their prized bull, their milk cows, their transportation camels, all dead or dying. It's a economical catastrophe. Speaking of catastrophe, I have a really bad allergy right now. My nose is very itchy. So, meanwhile, over in Goshen, Israelite territory, it's peaceful. The cows are mooing contentedly. Sheep are fine. Pharaoh hears reports. "We've lost all our cattle, sir. But the Hebrew slaves, their livestock are A-OK." Pharaoh even sends investigators to verify this, and indeed, not one single Israelite animal had died. The contrast is stark. Now, you'd think this might just tip Pharaoh over. Like, how stupid is this Pharaoh? It's not even just pride anymore at this point, but yeah, pride, but also very much stupidity. Acknowledge defeat already, but no. Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, and he still refuses to let the people go. Like, is he, like, for real? Our economy is tanking and he's still holding out. That must be what the Egyptians are saying. I don't know. Little does the Pharaoh know, the Egyptian gods are getting trounced one by one. So, fun fact, this plague was a direct well, we're not sure, could be, but direct affront to the deities um like the sacred bull god of Memphis, the cow-headed goddess. So basically God's saying, you know, move over false gods. But more on that in, the fun fact corner. Number 6, plague number 6, boils. Without warning, this one comes rapid fire. The Lord tells Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from a kiln and have Moses toss it into the air in front of Pharaoh. It will become the fine dust over Egypt, causing festering boils on people and animals. I wonder if the kids were affected too. Egyptian kids. So they do exactly that. Picture Moses dramatically flinging soot into the sky in Pharaoh's presence like a dark cloud of pixie dust, but instead of magic sparkles, it spreads an awful skin disease. Soon Egyptians everywhere break out in painful boils and sores. Red inflamed blisters pop up on all the people and any surviving animals. It's gross, painful, and unmistakably supernatural. Even Pharaoh's magicians, who have been rather quiet since the Nat debacle, are not immune. They're so covered in boils they can't even stand in Pharaoh's court. Perhaps they were trying all sorts of bombs and spells to cure themselves to no avail. The mighty sorcerers who once duplicated miracles are now hunched in a corner, moaning with ointments all over. This is the first plague to directly afflict the Egyptian people's bodies. Imagine the panic and misery. No one can hide from it, from the lowest servants to the highest priest. Even Pharaoh likely had some itchy bumps, though the text specifically highlights, so the Bible specifically highlights the magicians. Yet, Pharaoh's stubbornness only grows. It says, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart at this point, and he wouldn't listen. A shift is happening. Previously, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Now, God is depicted as reinforcing Pharaoh's obstinance. It's as if Pharaoh set his will like concrete, and now God's like, all right, if that's the way you want it, let's use that to fulfill my purposes. So we've seen death of livestock, economic ruin, and boils, personal hygiene suffering, but Pharaoh still stands firm, but probably uncomfortable, most likely uncomfortable, and especially if he's sitting on boils. All right, plague number 7, hail and fire. Now we reach a whole new level of dramatic. God instructs Moses, early in the morning, go warn Pharaoh. This time I'm sending the full force of my plagues. I could have wiped you off the earth by now, but I've spared you to show my power and make my name famous. Since you're still exalting yourself against my people, tomorrow I will send the worst hailstorm Egypt has ever seen. Get your people and remaining livestock under shelter, because any living thing left outside will die when the hail falls. Well, the unmerciful warning embedded in judgment. Whoever heeds will live, whoever ignores will perish. So this is unprecedented because Egypt is basically a desert. Heavy rain is rare, hail almost unheard of. Some of Pharaoh's officials have wised up by now. The scripture notes that those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord here hurried to bring their slaves and livestock indoors. They're like, I saw what happened last time when we ignored Moses. Everybody inside ASAP. But unbelievably, other Pharaoh's court still scoff and leave their servants and animals out in the open, perhaps thinking, hail in Egypt? Yeah, right. They're about to have a very bad day. So Moses stretches his staff toward the heavens at God's command, and the storm hits, and boy does it hit. I'm like getting like goosebumps just thinking about it. Literal goosebumps. So hail pours down, and not little pea-sized pellets, huge, pounding ice balls. And intermixed with hail is fire, likely lightning that looks like fire striking down. It's a freak storm of apocalyptic proportions. The sky gods and weather gods of Egypt are MIA as literal fire and ice rain from the sky. The sound is deafening, thunder rolling, ice smashing, crops are shredded, flax and barley are ruined. They were ripe and got annihilated. Um, trees splinter. Anyone or anything left outdoors, human or beast, is struck down by the hail. In Goshen, however, not a single hailstorm falls. It's like there's an invisible umbrella over the Israelites. Because again, there is a shield. They're shielded. They're protected. So Pharaoh's nerves finally crack. He sends an urgent message to Moses and Aaron to come see him. One imagines messengers dodging hail from the size of oranges to relay the invite. I don't know how they survived, but maybe God did protect them because they were sent to go get Moses and Aaron. I don't know. So when Moses arrives, Pharaoh is in a sobbing mess. This time I have sinned, he confesses. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Please, Moses, pray to your God. We've had enough of this thunder and hail. I will let you go. Just stop this. Will he really though? I don't know. But we heard that, yeah, Pharaoh actually said, I have sinned and the Lord is right. Like, wow. It sounds like a genuine repentance, or at least a terrified capitulation. So Moses isn't entirely convinced. I mean, fool me once, you know what I mean? But he says, all right, as soon as I leave the city, I'll pray and the storm will stop. So you know that the earth belongs to the Lord. But I know you and your officials still don't fear God for real. Moses can smell Pharaoh's insincerity a mile away. Maybe all those broken promises gave it away. Again, fool me once. Nonetheless, Moses trudges out in the storm. Not one hailstorm touches him, I bet. And lifts his hand to heaven. Instantly, the thunder and hail cease, and the rain stops pouring. From chaos to calm. Egypt is left with smoking ruins and fields, smashed chariots, and probably a lot of dented heads. But at least the nightmare has paused, not stopped. And Pharaoh, here we go again. Once he sees the clear skies and realizes the immediate danger, his true color resurfaces again. He sinned yet again and hardened his heart along with his officials. No release for the Israelites. It's becoming very comical at this point. Like, are you a masochist? Like, what is happening here? So Pharaoh keeps doing the fake repentance dance even after explicitly admitting fault. As soon as he's comfortable, he backpedals. So chapter 9 ends on a familiar note. Pharaoh's heart is hard, and he will not let God's people go, just as God has said. Yeah. So, fun fact corner. Oh, my nose is so itchy. I'm so sorry for those who are watching me on YouTube. I don't know why it's been so itchy. My allergies been so bad today. But it's just the outside. Actually, it's the outside of my nose. Anyways, I don't know why I'm talking about this. Fun fact corner. Bullseye on the bull. The fifth plague, diseased livestock, was another direct hit on Egyptian religion. One of Egypt's most revered holy animal was the bull, embodied by the god Apis. Apis? In Memphis, they kept a live sacred bull believed to be the incarnation of Apis. It was pampered and worshipped. So when Egypt's cattle dropped dead, It was seen as a humiliation of Apis, the bull god. Imagine the theological panic. Apis is supposed to protect us. Why are all our cows keeling over? In fact, an ancient devotional note puts it succinctly. Once more, an Egyptian deity, Apis, the bull god, was defeated by the one true God. Also affected would be Hathor or Hathor. A goddess depicted as a cow, symbol of motherhood and fertility. Her sacred cows didn't stand a chance either. This plague shouted loud and clear that Israel's God, God, their or Israel's God was targeting the Egyptians' false sources of strength and um, prosperity. Another neat detail, the Bible notes which crops were ruined by the hail: barley and flax. Can't talk. Specifically. And which were not wheat and spelt because they ripened later. This not only gives timeline. This likely happened around February, March, since flax and barley ripen early spring, but also shows the historical realism of the account. A little agronomy footnote in the text, who knew the Bible, included reports. But again, the Bible, especially the New Old Testament, is a historical, it's history. It happened. So, um, anyways, it's like saying, God, I know your agricultural schedule. So another fun fact: Exodus isn't just epic; it's also agri-science. I think that was the word. Agri-science. So the plagues methodically dismantled Egypt's economy, religion, and even crop cycle. Talk about divine strategy. God is just everything. And that is it for chapter 9. Here we are, 52 minutes. Okay, need to hurry. All right, chapter 10. Locusts, darkness, and stubborn king. So, by now, Egypt is on the ropes, but Pharaoh's heart still ironclad. This chapter features the last 2 plagues of episode 2. We'll save the grand finale plague for next time, so stay tuned on that. So let's dive in. Plague number 8, locusts. God kicks off by telling Moses, "Go to the Pharaoh, for I have hardened," or "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and his officials' heart, so I can show these signs, and so that you, the Israelites, can tell your children and grandchildren how I made fools of the Egyptians." So in other words, these events are going to be legendary, the kind of story you pass down for generations, as they have, because, we're still talking about it. So in other words, these events are going to be legendary. So Moses and Aaron approach Pharaoh yet again and deliver God's warning. "How long will you refuse to humble yourself? Let my people go to worship me. If you refuse, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your country. They will cover the land so you won't even see the ground, and they'll devour every bit of vegetation left after the hail, every tree, every crop. They'll fill your houses and all your officials' houses, something your fathers or grandfathers will never or have never seen in all their time in Egypt." Then Moses dramatically turns on his heel and leaves Pharaoh with that threat hanging in the air. Pharaoh's officials, who are now beyond done with all this, turn to Pharaoh and basically beg, "Sir, please, how long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so they can worship their God. Don't you realize Egypt is ruined?" These are the bold words to the king. It shows just how desperate they are. They're essentially saying, "Boss, open your eyes. We're toast in this if this continues." But Pharaoh, perhaps Feeling the pressure calls Moses and Aaron back. Perhaps they hadn't gone far. Pharaoh tries another negotiation. All right, fine. You can go worship the Lord your God, but exactly who is going? Moses answers straightforwardly. Everyone, duh, young, old, sons, daughters, and all our flocks and herds too. It's a festival for the Lord, for all of us. Pharaoh's face darkens. No way. If I even let you take your women and children, then the Lord really would have to be with you, because that's obviously your evil plan. He basically insinuates they want to all run away for good. Like, no, only the men may go worship, since that's what you've been asking for. Then Pharaoh has Moses and Aaron driven out of his presence in anger. So Pharaoh is trying to impose terms like, leave your families here as hostages, then I might let you men go for a bit. Like, nice try, Pharaoh, but that's not what God commanded. All his people, men are not just his people. Everybody are. Everybody, men, women, sons, daughters, all of them, and your flocks and herds too. Anyway, so Moses, God's instruction doesn't bother arguing. Instead, he proceeds with plan locust. He stretches out his staff, and the Lord sends an east wind that blows all day and night. By the next morning, the wind has delivered a gift nobody wanted. Locust swarms. We're talking the mother of all locust plagues. Dense swarm like never before, nor ever again. The sky goes dark with millions, billions of these hopping, flying, eating machines. They spread over the entirety of Egypt and begin to devour every green thing. Remember the hail left some crops, wheat, and the regrowth of anything? Well, not anymore. The locusts munch every leaf on every tree, every blade of grass, anything that survived and sprouted anew. Soon nothing green remains. The land is stripped bare, as if scorched. Egyptians are probably wailing at their last hope of food. Their last hope of food is literally being chewed up before their eyes. Inside houses, I'm sure locusts creep through cracks, making meals out of any stored grain or crumbs. It's total devastation, like a biblical plague. Well, in this case, it's literally a biblical plague. Anyways, Pharaoh urgently calls Moses and Aaron. Again, they arrive. I'm getting tired of this, all this back and forth and back and forth. If I was Moses and Aaron, oh my gosh, I would have just camped right outside of the castle or whatever. So they arrive, perhaps scrunching locusts underfoot as they walk. Gross. Pharaoh is in full capitulation mode again. I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you, he confesses. Now forgive my sin. Please, just this once. Just this once? How many just this once are you going to ask? But just this once, and plead with the Lord to take away this death from me. Notice, he calls the locust plague death. In an existential threat, it is an why can't I say it? Existential threat. There you go. Famine in the making. Pharaoh sounds sincere, but we've seen this, song and dance. I'm getting tired and I'm only reading it. Imagine if I was Moses or Aaron. Oh my gosh, all that. I don't know. I would not have the patience. But still, Moses obliges. He likely sighs, nodded, and went out to pray. Moses prays and God responds by shifting the wind to a very strong west wind. It sweeps the locusts away and drives them into the Red Sea. Every last one. Not a single locust was left in Egypt. Talk about pest control. God is just, everything. He's everything. Egypt's, sky clears, the noise stops, and I imagine the eerie silence as everyone looks around at the treeless, leafless landscape. Um, Pharaoh has gotten yet another miraculous mercy. And yet, you guessed it, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart and he would not let the Israelites go. Like, anyway, Pharaoh is basically the worst. He has been the worst, but he's the worst at this point. He's the worst he has ever been, even though he was already the worst the first time. The pattern is clear. Genuine relief yields genuine relapse for him. Now, for the grand finale of this episode, Plague 9, darkness. So, without any verbal warning, he doesn't even deserve any warning. But, so without any verbal warning to the Pharaoh, this time, like, notice every third plague comes with no warning, though. But, anyways, God instructs Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven and let there be darkness over Egypt, a darkness that can be felt. So that phrasing gives me chills. Like, darkness you can feel. Like, thick, oppressive, pitch black darkness. It's like so scary. It's like how I feel every time I watch a horror movie and then I don't even want to, sleep in the dark. Well, I don't sleep in the dark anyway, so I always have a nightlight. Yeah. I mean, I'm old and I still can't sleep without a nightlight. Yep, that's me. But imagine, I would be so scared. So Moses does as, he was instructed to do, and immediately an unnatural deep darkness falls on the land of Egypt for 3 days. Like, even during the day. There's no day, it's just night, thick darkness for three days. Imagine the midday sun turning off like a light bulb. One moment Egyptians are cleaning locust carcasses. The next moment they can't see their own hands. People light lamps or torches, but even those seem to give no light. Like, perhaps, because again, it's thick darkness. So, yeah, you can use your lamps, candles, or whatever, but it's not going to do much. It's not going to brighten the darkness like it would usually do. So, essentially a total blackout. The text from the Bible says people couldn't see each other and no one moved from where they were for 3 days. I wouldn't move. I would be so scared. I'm sorry again for those who are watching me on YouTube. Like, I can see, like, my nose is so red. It's so itchy. And like the outside. Well, the inside is itchy too, but the outside is really itchy. I have no idea. I don't know what's happening. So, it's like a sensory deprivation blanket over the whole nation. However, the Israelites had light where they lived. So, cue another wink from God. I know how to take care of my own. Maybe that's what he said. That's what he was trying to show the Egyptians. So this plague of darkness strikes at the core of Egypt's religion. Ra, the sun god, was considered one of their greatest deities. Pharaoh himself was called son of Ra. Now, Ra is effectively dethroned for 3 days, despite all the prayers and panic that I'm sure were happening. The sun did not shine. God's message: I am bigger than your biggest god. Because your biggest god is not God at all. It's not real. So, it's hard to convey how terrifying this darkness would be. Like, have you ever been in a cave with no light? Like, you wave your hand before your face and see nothing. Time gets weird. Minutes feel like hours. Many Egyptians must have thought the end of the world had come. Like, that they were literally cursed. So after 3 days, Pharaoh finally decides to do something. He calls out to Moses, perhaps through messengers, groping in the dark to find him. I don't know how they were able to do that. But anyways, it says, all right, go worship your Lord. You can even take your women and children. Just leave your flocks and herds behind. Come on, stop negotiating. Just Anyway, so still trying to bargain. Pharaoh wants to keep their economic livelihood, herds as leverage. So Moses, unwavering, responds, no deal. We need our livestock too, not a hoof left behind, because we must use some for sacrifices and we don't know what we'll need until we get there. So Moses basically says we're leaving with everyone and everything, period. At this, Pharaoh completely loses it, saying, get away from me! Take care that. Wait, what? I'm trying to read. Take care that you never see my face again, for the day you do, you shall die. So, this is Pharaoh's furious final threat. He's done negotiating. I mean, why was he negotiating in the first place? There's no negotiating with God. So in his pride, he'd rather kill Moses than concede. Moses, calm and resolute, gives a final parting shot. As you say, I will not see your face again. Then Moses leaves the palace and mic drop. That line was a dual-edged line. It's true, Moses won't come back for another chat. The next time Pharaoh sees Moses, he'll be begging the Israelites to leave. But that's a story for episode 3. For now, episode 2 ends on, a dark cliffhanger. Literally, Egypt is still shrouded in darkness. The Bible doesn't explicitly say when it lifts, presumably after the 3-day or perhaps immediately after Moses' exit. Pharaoh's rage has reached murderous level, and Moses is effectively banished under threat of death. Yet nothing is resolved. The Israelites are still slaves, and one plague is ominous. One plague is ominously my grammar, oh my gosh. One plague is ominously still to come. So God has one more card to play. The tensest and most devastating of all, which we will cover next time. So yeah. Alright, fun fact corner. Story for millennia. Here's a neat fact. The events of Exodus 10 are not only history, they become the foundation of a lasting tradition. God explicitly wanted the story told in the hearing of your children and of your grandchildren. And that's exactly what happened. To this day, during the Jewish Passover, families recount the tales of plagues of, and the Exodus, and other religions too. Like non-denominational. We talk about that too, and I'm sure other religions, other churches, all that. So this is, everybody knows this, and if anything, you would know it also from the animated movie Prince of Egypt. So, but yeah. So there's even a portion where each plague is recited, often with some symbolism, like a drop of wine removed from the cup for each plague to remember the suffering. So when God said these signs would be remembered, he meant it. We're taking a few thousand years of annual, storytelling. Also, plague number 9, the darkness, had a profound symbolic punch. It showed God's supremacy over Ra, the sun god, who was supposedly Egypt's most powerful deity. For Egyptians, a sunless sky meant their top god was MIA. One ancient commentary quips that Ra had a total eclipse of the heart, because the true God literally turned out the lights on him. Furthermore, darkness is called a thick darkness in some translation, implying maybe even a supernatural element. I don't know, but not just an absence of light, but a tangible gloom. Some like rabbi stories even suggest that darkness was so thick that lamps didn't work, or that it was felt in the soul. Like, that is spooky. Maybe just me. It's just me, because I don't like complete darkness. yeah, anyways, so the upshot, each plague carried both practical devastation and deeper meaning. In locust, Egypt's food security and gods of the harvest were shamed. In darkness, their sun god was shamed, and through it all, the children of Israel were watching and learning. They talk about these, days forever. Mission accomplished. If you've ever participated in a Passover, you know, or seen one, when the plagues are enumerated, you're doing exactly what Exodus 10 verse 2 envisioned. Remembering how God made a fool of the Egyptians and delivered his people. So I think that's pretty cool. And that, dear listeners, concludes episode 2 of our Exodus saga. What an episode. We had family genealogies, cosmic smackdowns of gods, rivers of blood, amphibian invasion, insect swarms, snarling boils, record setting hailstorms, freaky locust clouds, and darkness you could trip over. Through it all, Moses remains steadfast. Pharaoh remains, very stupid with each chapter. Getting stupider and stupider each after every plague. But, when we pick up next time, we'll step into Exodus episode 3, where the tension hits its peak. There's one last plague on the horizon, the most dramatic and actually very heartbreaking of all, that will finally break Pharaoh's grasp. I know you Bible buffs know what's coming, or those who've seen the movie. So no spoilers, or maybe yes spoilers. I like to spoil. For others, let's just say you might want to bring a tissue. So will Pharaoh's hardened heart shatter? Will the Israelites finally pack their bags? And what epic celebration and challenges awaits them if they do get free? So stay tuned, because the Exodus story is far from over, very far from over. Same time next week, we'll cover chapters 11 through 15 and witness the climax. Hint, hint, it involves a midnight cry and a sea showdown of cinematic proportions. I told you I like to spoil. So until then, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this lively journey through the scripture. Thank you so much for listening to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a comment. Maybe, it could be a comment on how I can better this podcast, how I can better myself, whatever. You can catch new episodes on YouTube and Apple Podcasts only. And until next time, keep learning, keep laughing, and as always, stay curious.